Next week we'll start a new Maamar. We're on page 277. Where he brought the difference between the sun that allows someone to see for a mile or more versus the oir. The Medrash says, Rashi I believe brings it, that there was an oir that Adam Rishon was given at the beginning of creation that allowed him to see from one end of the world to the other end of the world. So the Rebbe brought this as an example to explain the difference between oiros of toyu and oiros of tikkun. And I emphasize, not this example, Baruch, was not brought in the Maamar to explain the difference between oiros the toyu and kalim the tikkun. The comparison at this point now is what's the difference between the energy of olam hatoyu and the energy of olam hatikkun, the energy of both. And to this he brought the example, the difference between the oir hashemesh and the oir shenivra b'yom rishon. That there's no comparison between the two. So too, the difference in the quality between the energy of toyu and the energy of tikkun is an adam finitum, a non-comparison between the two. So let's now learn inside 277, 5 lines from the bottom, where it says in the middle of the line, the tachlis hakavona.
Got it.
The tachlis hakavona, what is the ultimate purpose? Hamshachas ha'oros hatoyu b'kelim the tikkun. And this we also spoke about yesterday, the story I told you for Rabbi Chaim. So the Rebbe says it here in his short, brief words. The ultimate purpose is to draw down, to bring into the world the energies of toyu into the kelim of tikkun. In other words, after he taught us, Hillel, that there's no comparison in the quality of the energy between the two energies, toyu and tikkun, nevertheless, the objective is to bring the energy of toyu into the vessels of tikkun. As I used the word yesterday, into normalcy. I believe a few weeks ago, Baruch had asked me, what does it mean to live lechatchila riber, over the top, within normalcy? I mean, how do you do both? Didn't you ask me such a question, Baruch? So
yes, I'll ask you that. Yeah.
Okay, so this question is also being answered here, but without the question being positioned in the way you did. But just for another moment, what is your question? The question that he asked is the following. If I'm living in an over-the-top healthy way, not in a sick over-the-top way, which is only going to make you sick and heartache and problems. Okay? But if you're living lechatchila ribra, meaning you break through boundaries, Yoni, you don't allow yourself to be limited by the ways of the world. The world says so and so. You go beyond that, and I don't mean that you don't listen to doctors. I don't mean that. But say, for example, I just had it in the mikveh just now, an hour ago. Someone who, he and I meet in the mikveh 4 or 5 in the morning, when I used to get up by 4 for the earlier shiurim, and now it's a little later. Anyway, so I was in the mikveh immersing, and a gentleman comes, someone else, and he says, I can't go in till you go out. 6 feet social distancing in the mikveh. In the mikveh, you understand? Not even in the outside area, in the mikveh. So, I know him, and, I didn't belittle him. But when I went out, I said, they told us that basically they're allowing people to protest and to walk together. It seems like they're not enforcing, and that means they don't believe you need the 6 feet anymore, whatever. So he says to me, I asked my Rebbe, and my Rebbe said I should follow my doctors, and the doctors said that although for 3 months I was quarantined and I shouldn't go out, now I came out, but I should still follow the social distancing. I said, fine. Meanwhile, this other guy who I normally meet in the mikveh early, we're talking, and he says, and I said, I heard that Rabbi Wolfson, the rabbi of Emunas Yisrael, who's known, this Matzah Shabbos, or last Matzah Shabbos at Kiddush Levana, they dance. And you're talking about a few hundred people. They have a very large Shalashudas crowd. They close the lights. It's a whole, a very, very serious type of an experience, which it should be. Anyway. And they were dancing for, after they say the Kiddush Levana, but they weren't holding hands. So Rabbi Wolfson said, it's finished. The corona is finished. And you can hold hands. So they held hands and they danced. This is what he tells me. So I say to him, and then he says to me, but I don't know if that's for everybody. So that already I could not tolerate. And I had to give him my opinion. And I said, Manufshach means either or. If you believe Rabbi Wolfson is on the level of being able to announce that Corona is over, then why is it only over for people dancing Matzah Shabbos? It's over for everybody. Otherwise, he would specify. And if you don't believe he has the koyach, so then you shouldn't even hold hands, even after he said that. He didn't. He just looked at me. He turned, whatever I challenged him. At an interesting time in the morning, and he went into the shower, and we just continued. Why am I saying this? L'chatchila riber means that when you go to a tzaddik, for example, or when you go to a rav, and you believe that this is das Torah, then if you feel this way, you have a right to follow the tzaddik and the rav and not follow the doctor. And this, or better said, not follow the doctor's knowledge of what he knows, but rather kind of follow the information that the doctor doesn't know that the tzaddik sees and tells you. And we have numerous stories, not only with the Rebbe, but with so many tzaddikim and Mukubolim, that they told people to do so and so, and it was contrary to doctor's advice, and it worked, and this is not a Baba Meiser, this is a fact. People, if the Rebbe, with Lubavitcher Rebbe, if the Rebbe told them to take the operation, they did. If he said no, or he made a face, or he said try this, they did not. In face of medical advice, I can tell you that numerous times, and you've heard it. So, l'chatchila riber, over the top, is a very, very, it's a very, very large commitment. But so even if you have the over-the-top experience, how do you bring it down into normalcy? In other words, seemingly being normal, following the doctor, contradicts over the top. It could contradict it, like I just told you. So in the language of the Maamar, how do you successfully blend the or of toyu, which is intense passion, in a vessel that's limited? That's the question. That was Baruch's question. And the answer is that when you reveal in the vessel that the vessel is actually even higher and greater than the energy, then you can bring that energy into the vessel. Because the purpose of the vessel and limitation is to make a dwelling place for Hashem on earth, which means dira b'tachtoinim. So in the keli draws down the essence. This is a klal, a rule in Chasidus. In Hebrew, the klal goes like this. You're all learning Chasidus, and deep Chasidus, and more Chasidus. The keli is a mamshich, the or. You students draw out in me. What do you draw out? You draw out the energy. I'm going to teach and prepare better and try to communicate better. When you have students who are not interested or not as interested, the teacher feels it, and the average teacher, their heart and soul is not there. The keli, the student, draws, is mamshich the or. So yes, we want the or of tayu. We want that passion. But the only way for that passion to be able to be experienced in the world is when the keli draws that or. So therefore, what's my answer to Baruch's question? If you're coming from the perspective of the or, of the energy, you're right. You can't put the two together. Being over the top, the chatchila riba, and passionate is a stira, is a contradiction to being quote unquote normal. But if you're coming from the place of normalcy, and the place of normalcy says, I need some over the top passion to reignite my excitement about Hashem and Torah and life, then the or senses, I have a purpose. I have a purpose. Not only can I, can I give over the top energy to anyone, but I can get, and some will get it the right way and some the wrong way. I can now give the over the top energy in a way that'll be filtered properly and be experienced properly. And that's the answer to your question, Baruch. When the keli's mamshich the or, then even the or hatayu will be a successful one. And this is something you're right. What?
Thank you.
Yeah, this is something that's not discussed much. Very seldom do I find this discussed, but it just came to me as I'm talking to you, these additional words, because it's been on my mind for a few weeks since you asked me the question, because it's a real good question that, by the way, the Rebbe dealt with this question every year when he spoke about the Chatchila Rebbe, and he used all kinds of explanations and examples and practical advice to answer this question. But in thought, in machshava, I believe this is one of the nekudas. That's the answer to the question and the practical way of being balanced, but within being balanced, being over the top.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, let's continue. So he says, "Shezeu al yidei ha'avoda b'limud ha'torah v'kiyum ha'mitzvos." How do you accomplish Shabalev and service of the heart? That the godly soul is involved with here below, and it refines the nefesh habamis shebo me'atoyu. So remember, Kabbalah says, what is the shaydish? What is the shaydish yonisin of the nefesh habamis? Oilam atoyu. It only happens to be that because the kalim was shattered, it fell and tripped and broke its legs and hurt itself. Yoni, the source of a nefesh habamis comes from very deep up there, called toyu. You hear that? All the shtus that there is in the world, if it's not forbidden, but it's just silly and, a waste of time, in its source, it really comes from Toyu. What about the Nefesh Elikis? we say in Tanya chapter 2, he brings that it's a divine part of Hashem. He says, hey, all it is tikkun. In other words, which is a higher world, Tayu or tikkun? Tayu. So, although this results in nefesh abamis and this results in nefesh elikis, the Rebbe says, remember it's shaydish. And that's what Hillel quoted yesterday with Esav. Where does Esav come from in source? Tayu. I want to take that energy and use that energy for Hashem. The energy of Moshe Bayers, the energy of Nefesh Elikis, it's beautiful. It's very nice. But it's like Mama's good boy, or as we used to say in Yeshiva, he is the TLer of the class. Remember Yoni, the TLer? Right? You know the TLer means guys, right? And if you don't, I'm not telling you. T in this case, the T in the Yiddish stands for the backside of a person. T. L stands for leker, which means the Yiddish word for liquor. He is the backside liquor of the teacher. In other words,
teacher's pet.
That's right. But if I wouldn't say the teacher's pet, I wouldn't get you to laugh. So I have to say TLer. So he's the TLer of the class. Very nice. Very, very nice. But it's all very, very where is the passion? Where is the excitement? Where is the breakout? Over the top. That's in Toyu. And that's why, Chevra, Toyu is scary. Why is it scary? Because Toyu it's like the unknown. We're afraid of the unknown. What we're comfortable with is, we know our little corner, our little shul, our little marketplace, go into somewhere new. Who's there? What's there? How's there? It's unknown. Tayu is a domain of unknown. So that's what the Rebbe says here. But you have to know that in that unknown place there lies a gem and a diamond. It's called passion over the top. Tayu. Yes, Yoni. Yes, Yoni.
I don't remember, last year we learned about the Nefesh Bahamis and the passion behind the Nefesh Bahamis. My question is that the only Nefesh Sichlis and the Nefesh Elokis is devoid of any passion? Meaning the only passion is because of the Nefesh Bahamis, or it's kind of like a combination of all three things?
Good question. Each one has its primary function and its secondary function. So in this discussion, we're talking about the primary function. And the primary function of Bahamis is passion, Elokis is godliness, and godliness without the passion, just godliness. And then there's in between the Seichel. It happens to be, and this is why you're asking and your confusion, not confusion, what your question is a good question, but they come together. So that's why when I get passionate about davening, I say it's coming from my Elokis, not necessarily. You know what the proof is, whether you're davening and you're shaking and your passion is godly, is that if the end result is correct. If the end result leads to something not good, then your passion didn't come from the right side, it came from your animal side. There is the pure passion, and then there's the content of what you use the passion for. Elikis, the godly soul, the neshama, it's a straight shooter. That's its comfort zone. It's coming from Hashem. It is part of Hashem within you, and that's all it sees. Anything that is contrary to it, it rejects. It says, sorry. So from that perspective, Yoni, the Nefesh Elikis is limited. In other words, the Nefesh Elikis cannot see itself marching in 1969 towards the border in San Francisco when people were going to do things inappropriate. And the Nefesh Elikis does what Reb Shlomo Carlebach did with a group of people. And I heard this from one of the people who was with him on the march. As they're going towards the water, the bay, he made a left and he took the group with him. Because he realized that this is not going to be godly. So, the Nefesh Elikis, this is right and this is wrong. The Nefesh Abamis is a risk taker. And he says, I'm going to go down there, close my eyes, or stand to the side and put on tefillin with people who are still dressed. That's very risky. And some will tell you it's forbidden. Right? We had Reb Shlomo Schwartzy Alav Hasholem, who would go to Venice Beach and put on tefillin with Yidden. Right? Only Schwartzy could do that. Most others couldn't do that. You had to be a Jew like Schwartzy, who saved souls, and he had some souls he had to save at the beach. Not by the water, but the boardwalk, and, I'm sure he did it in a kosher way. But even that is toyu. You ask your average rabbi, they'll say, absolutely forbidden, shouldn't be there, away. You want to save souls? You want to put on tefillin, stand on Wilshire Boulevard or Beverly Boulevard or Fairfax, on and on and on. What do you have to go down to the beach? Right? That's toyu. It isn't conventional. There's not even a question. It's unconventional. The whole idea of in the 60s, the Baal Tshuva movement was so unconventional. The rabbinate from all sides, Hasidic, Litvak, Sephardic, everyone didn't understand this entire idea. If you want to be a Jew, you want to put on tefillin, clean yourself up, and come into shul like a mensch, and we'll help you. But for us to go to you, to be in your domain, is very risky. And many didn't do it, or most didn't do it. So Nefesh Elikis is on its own, Yoni, approaches things in a normal, gradual, sensible way. Nefesh Abamis approaches things in a wild way, in a exotic way. Does each have an element of the other within it? Yes. But the primary aspect of passion and over the top is Nefesh Abamis driven. And the primary aspect of Nefesh Elikis is limited, normal, regular approach. And the Nefesh HaSichlis is the intermediary and the mediator between the two, bring them together. That's my short answer for your question. Let's continue. Nefesh Elikis, Im Hayosh, last line on 277. Im Hayosh Chelik Elikabi Mal Mamish. Although it's a part of Hashem, Mal Mamash. Wow, nevertheless, Hinehu Mibchinas HaTikin. All it is from Tikin. Don't get so excited. It's too normal. It doesn't break out. V'kasher, next page, 278. V'kasher, Nefesh Elikis mevarer u'mezachach Nefesh Abamis. Look what happens here. When the Nefesh Elikis refines the Nefesh Abamis, hinizeu havos oires detoyu bekel metikin. That's the implementation of what Kabbalah calls drawing the light, the energy of Toyu, into the vessels of Tikkun. Right? You have the nefesh abamis, which is toyu. You have the nefesh elikis, which is tikkun. When you draw toyu into tikkun, you accomplish the synthesis in its most proper way. And this is our daily avodah in every aspect of life. This is, to sum up, this is what the Rebbe says is why we're here on earth. We're here to take the nefesh abamis, not to squash it and eliminate it, but to extract from it the passion, which is its essence, and use that for a godly purpose in a godly setting, and i.e. the nefesh elikis. Yes.
Would Shtus Kedusha be the same thing?
Yes. Shtus de Kedusha would be the equivalent of Toyu. Shtus de Kedusha means, what he's referring to, Baruch, is silliness within holiness. You know, like the Gemara says that the rabbi was dancing at the wedding in a way that made him seem very silly. But why was the Yehuda Bar Ilai, I believe? Why was he doing that? Because he wanted to make the Chassan and Kala very happy. So it was Shtus de la Kedusha. It was for Kedusha, but it was Shtus. And we have such stories with, you know, the town jester who would seem to be just a person going around and making jokes, but really his kavanah was to make everyone happy. You know? Okay, so so Baruch was asking whether taking the Shtus de Kedusha and using it for Hashem would be an example of taking the energy of the Nefesh Abamis of Olam HaToyu and bring it into Tikkun. Yes. But again, remember, what is it that you are using in Tikkun? You're using the energy of Toyu. It's not that, you see, if you synthesize it to the point where it's no longer felt that it's the energy of Toyu, then you don't have Toyu. But, Yonason, as soon as Oyers the Toyu becomes too tikkundik, it's no longer Toyu. In other words, the excitement of a Baal Teshuvah, once that excitement is usually there in the beginning, right? It lasts for a while. Then the Baal Teshuvah integrates into the community, and all of a sudden he's part of everyone, right? Oh, that passion and energy wanes. It dwindles. Because the Oyres, the Toyu that he came in with to the experience has been so integrated and synthesized with Tikkun that he no longer has Oyres, the Toyu. And this happens daily to every one of us in our own way. The initial excitement is there, and then after we become comfortable with it, we become complacent, and that excitement dwindles. So you're no longer in touch with Toyu, Yoni. You're now operating all Tikkun. And there's a lot to be said for that, but the passion is not there. If you want the passion, you have to tug at Oyres the Toyu. So here's the question. Hillel, how do we access Oyres the Toyu once we're already in a world of Tikkun, in an experience of Tikkun? So the first thing is to realize, to stop and think and come to the conclusion that I'm now a Tikkun Dika Jew. And that's wonderful, but it's just Tikkun. And I need to break out. I need to break out to find the energy of Toyu so that my Tikkun experience should not dwindle or be stale. As the famous example is, if you want the shoemaker to put on tefillin and to daven and to do mitzvahs, the rabbi has to be exciting and has to be exhilarating and has to be very committed. And for the rabbi to be committed and exhilarating, the rabbi's teacher has to be even more. What's on the top of the ladder ultimately results in the bottom of the ladder. If you want your daily avodah to be animated, you must search for toyu energy. And this is what we call in Chasidus rotzui v'shuv, yearning and longing and retreat. The heart pumps back and forth, up and down. But as long as we're cognizant of it and we search for the up, although we come down, that's a healthy thing. Because then there will be remnants of toyu that will impact your tikkun avodah. So Moshe says yesterday to us, you know, how his friend is so rigid and all that. That is a recognition for him, for Moshe, of toyu. For this fellow, his friend, who is tikkun, who's so rigid and so disciplined, and Moshe says to us yesterday, I can't do it. That I can't do it should tell you, great. So now what are you going to do about cannot do it? I'm going to do something more outrageous. That, so, you see, what Moshe said yesterday, and I don't know if he realized it, but the kind of, I don't know if he used negative, but the kind of, what he said about, like, I can't relate to this, that itself becomes the catalyst for breaking out. So when you get nice and comfortable, and you have, and I think about this a lot in my own life, being nice and comfortable. And sometimes I say, I'm sick and tired of being nice and comfortable. Enough already. Because comfort is not where God is, okay? Now I don't mean to imply we shouldn't have the comforts, chas v'sholem, and the wealth and the health. But a person has to be a constant, remember what we learned, mahalach. You gotta keep on climbing. If you don't climb the ladder upwards and you stay still, you're ultimately gonna fall down. And it doesn't mean you're gonna fry out. That's not what it means. But it means your avodah is gonna be so boring and so unexcited and it's just you'll be very stale and you'll be down. And who wants to be down? So therefore, what we need to do is, within the tikkun mode, to look for toyu. Don't be afraid to find a new experience that's not in your comfort zone. And take the challenge. Take the challenge. It might not be for you at the end of the day, but take the challenge. That itself is very exciting. And by the way, the truth is in the opposite as well. This fellow that's so disciplined, for him I would say, if he were to come to me, for example, and ask, I'm doing everything right, but I don't feel. It reminds me, there's a professor, Yaakov Brouwer. He used to be at McGill University in Montreal. And I knew him, I brought him he was a scientist, quantum physics, a real top scientist, and a scientist of endocrinology, and he helped women have children, because he understands the mechanism and the makeup of the whole issue of birth and all that. So I asked him, and he's already 40 maybe years or more about teshuva, and a very, very, very bright man. And he learns Chasidus, probably one of the probably the person who learns one of the most Chasidus in the world. I mean, he used to tell me he'd come home from McGill and spend 3-4 hours learning into the night, and sometimes he put his feet, I think, into cold water so he wouldn't fall asleep. I mean, very serious, very serious. So I asked him, what brought you to Chabad? He was at Harvard at the time, and he knew he was Jewish, and maybe he belonged to a conservative or reform, I don't know. And in Boston, there was a Chassidish Rebbe, you all know, you've heard, the Bostoner Rebbe. And they have a pedigree of Kedusha and the Rebbe's going back. It's not from the large Chassidisin today, but in quality, the Bostoner movement and dynasty has a very strong line, son after son. I mean, it's not to be dismissed, although number-wise, they're from the small groups, okay? So he tells me, Dr. Brower tells me that he started to learn with the Bostoner Rebbe and his people Gemara, and lots of Gemara. And he liked it, but he had questions about God. Not just about one animal goring an animal, and how you give a divorce, and how you receive a divorce, and how you get married. And those were all, bread and butter, of course, to live a Jewish life. But what about, can we prove the existence of God? How do you reconcile science and God? I mean, those questions that are very philosophical questions. And he said, he didn't find the answers to those questions in the Boston shul and experience. Whatever, just, that wasn't, somehow he met Rabbi Moshe Gurkov, may he be well. Rabbi Moshe Gurkov was a Lubavitcher from Russia, who when the Rebbe said, you should go out and teach Yiddish children. So he went to Rabbi J.J. Hecht, who was in charge of the release time, the Wednesday hour, and he said, where can I go? So he says, go to Boston. So he picks himself up and he goes to Boston. He has no idea where he's landing. That's the type of Jew. And I know this Moshe Gurkov, a tremendous chassid, with tremendous, but he was a Talmud Chacham as well, not just a big chassid, but a Talmud Chacham. So Brower meets Moshe Gurkov, and they start learning Derech Mitzvah Secha of the Tzemach Tzedek, which may hopefully one day we'll learn some of those Maimarim. Shoyrish Mitzvah Tefillah is one Maimar. Hamonas Elikus, Maimarim that deal with the basic philosophical questions of Judaism, etc. He's blown away. And I think probably this guy Brower had a better head than Gurkov, although Gurkov was sharp, but he didn't know the material. So Gurkov is teaching him this material, and all of a sudden, his eyes open up, and the rest is history. He decides he wants to be a Lubavitcher, not a Bostoner Chassid, a Lubavitcher. Why am I saying this? Because the person who is limited to a certain approach, it's wonderful, but it doesn't always give you the answers that you need or what you need in your life. And then you need something else. So the person who Moshe, you said, if he were to come to me and he'd say, I'm doing everything right, but I'm still depressed, I'm still stale, I still don't have a chayas, and I'm not saying at all it's this way. From what you told me, it seems not that way. The answer is find another find a tohu approach in your life to add salt and pepper to what you're already doing. But I'll say, I'm very uncomfortable. Well, my friend, if you don't want to become uncomfortable, then then you're not you are gonna remain in your box. You gotta get down and dirty. You gotta work. You have to endeavor. You have to explore. You have to take risks. That is the way to grow. That's really the way to grow. And I believe that this is a result of the same concept that we're learning in the Maamar here. The impact that the Toyu has on Tikkun. So that's why Hillel, right? That ultimately we need and want the energy of Esav. The energy, not the application of Esav. The application is treif, is no good. But the energy is so important. Is so important. Rise to the challenge. That's Toyu. Rise to the challenge. Yes, Yoni.
Rabbi, so I think you told us a story once about, I think it was either the Baal Shem Tov or the Levi Bartishim, about the wagon that got stuck in the mud, right? And I think he got stuck in the mud, and then I think it was either the Baal Shem Tov or Levi went outside, and like he saw somebody trying to help him out, but he was like holding like a rope or like a branch to try to help the guy. And then the Baal Shem Tov went into I think it was the Baal Shem Tov, he went into the butts, into the mud, and he physically took him out with both of his hands out of the butts. So he told the guy, he says, if you want to help people, you want to save people, do mitzvahs, you have to get down and dirty into the mud. I think it's the Baal Shem Tov or the Levi, one or the other.
So why are you saying that?
So I'm saying that the same way, like we're talking about tikkun, and we're talking about how a person, let's say Schwartzy, right? We're talking about Schwartzy. He was on Venice Beach and he was saving souls in Venice Beach, right? He was literally going into the mud, into the butts. So he was able to somehow bring the tikkun into the tohu. Not everyone could do that. Like
no, he was able to. Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I'm saying, like I look at it like shlichim, and you send the shliach to Vegas, or you send the shliach to Miami Beach, to what do you call South Beach. That's what they're doing. They're taking tikkun, bringing it into tayu in order to save Jewish souls.
Right, and I see it also going into the Masas Mordechai building and davening and opening a Likutei Torah and learning and then talking Chasidus with the Litvaks there. It's the same Toyu and Tikkun. We don't have to, most of us can't do what Schwartzy did and we're not required to do that. That's a whole different world. But to go into Masas Mordechai and to learn and then to open a discussion with someone, that Baruch who lives across the street and everyone here can do. But you need to know your material and you need to, you have to be respectful. As I researched the Gedolim, the Litvish Gedolim and their relation with Chabad, it's clearer to me, and I saw this when I was in by you guys. When you show respect to others, this is human decency. Others respect you, and that this precedes all the religiosity. Meaning to say, I have been in situations with some very, very anti-Lubavitch people. Okay, but as soon as I show them respect, they show me respect. We disagree on fundamental issues, but we can dialogue. I was 3 hours I spent on the phone just last week with Rabbi Gifter's son. Rabbi Gifter was a head Rosh Yeshiva in Cleveland, and he was known to be an opponent of Chabad, at least later in his life. Okay, and I was debating the whole time, should I call his son, because I needed some basic information. And I left him a message or two, and I didn't hear back. So I said, okay, probably he doesn't know who I am, or if he knows who I am, he's not interested. He called me back. He kept me on the phone for 3 hours.
Wow.
And he told me things that no one knows. It was a heart-to-heart conversation. So when you show respect to a person, I don't care who the person is, the person will show respect to you. And when you don't show respect, and don't show respect means You don't go to give Shalom Aleichem to the Rav in town. You don't come to a shir. You know what I'm saying? Just some basic respectful things that the Torah wants us to do, regardless of what you are. And if you don't do that, you lost a person. I saw that in Los Angeles. Those years when Rabbi Shachar, the Rosh Hashiva, in the beginning, he spent time with the Rosh Hashiva of the Yeshiva Gedola, Litvish Yeshiva. And Rabbi Shachar, believe me, was the biggest Talmud Chacham in all of Los Angeles. Trust me, okay? He learned in Brisk, he learned by Baron Kotler, and he had his genius mind. But nevertheless, and they were much younger than him, so he, community, you have to work together. And when you show respect, that's the gateway to other things. Another story someone told me, this was in Baltimore. I'm not going to say the names because it's you guys know who this is, and it's not one of the Rosh Hashiva at the yeshiva there. 2 years ago, Purim, the Ner Yisrael, they made a play, some of the Bacharim, and they belittled Lubavitch. They made fun of Chabad. You might have heard about it. It was on the Jewish websites, and the Rosh Hashiva called a Lubavitcher who told me this. He called him and he said, I want to apologize to you on behalf of the yeshiva. They were wrong in what they did. So the Lubavitcher told me, he said, you know why he called me? Because we met on a plane years before. And although most of the time he was learning throughout the night from America to Eretz Yisrael, I had a chance to speak to him just, heart to heart. And he told me why he's upset with Chabad. And it had nothing to do with the Shita. At least that's what he said. It had to do because a certain person didn't recognize the existence of a community in a yeshiva that preceded Lubavitch. There were Lubavitches in Baltimore before the yeshiva, There was 5 Lubavitcher shuls in the 1920s. But that's not the point. Just come. You come to town, you're here, say Shalom Aleichem. I'm not asking you to come to every shir of mine. I'm not asking you to come to any shir of mine. But, acknowledgement. And he said, you were the first, he says to the Lubavitcher, told me this, you were the first guy who took time to talk to me like a mensch. And that's why years later, when they offended Lubavitch, my students, he picked up the phone on his own to call this Lubavitcher to say, I want you to know they were wrong, and I told them, and I apologize for them. So it all begins with human decency. Yes, Moshe Myers.
I was just going to share something, if it's okay, quickly. I was makar with tefillin, but initially at Bobo. That's a long story.
Really?
Eventually, they told me I had questions. Yeah, it's a long story another time, but I had questions, Hashkafic, and they said, you better go to Eish Torah, because it was around the corner at the time, they told me. So anyways, long story short, I ended up doing fundraising, as you know, with Eish. And the main thing I was going to say is that I was involved with Eish, and I was involved in Kiruv, obviously, but I was seeing that I had 2 friends that I wasn't having success with. I was trying to get them closer. And their brother of one of these guys, their partners in the business, had a guy coming every Friday, a shaliach from young guys, teenagers from Chabad. And they were coming to the brother, and he was putting on tefillin. I go, what the heck? I said, they're doing this, so I'm going to go. So I showed up at their office building. I come into the building, and there's a Chinese food restaurant. And I was going to go up to the office, and I see them sitting there. I go, hey, hi, guys. And they go, hey, Russ. My English name is Russ. Russ, come on, sit down, have some treif. It's religious. They're going, have some treif. Like, I tell you what, let's go up to your office, late film. It'll counteract the effect of the treif on your neshamas. And they laughed. And they laughed, and they came upstairs, and we put on tefillin. And they said, at the end of it, they said, okay, so what about next Friday? So I said, okay, here I am. I'm becoming like a kabbat shliach. Like I was putting on tefillin every Friday, and eventually they both got tefillin. Beyond that, I can't say, but
right.
But you never know. You take it best,
Yeah. Anyway,
so that was the example. But I had to, like you say, I had to get my hands had to get involved,
Right, but I don't, from all of this, I don't want to lose the point, and we'll end with this: is that what Yoni said about Toyu and Tikkun with Schwartzy on the beach. Don't forget Toyu and Tikkun in your own house and Toyu and Tikkun in your own community. Have a great day. Bye bye.